The New England Patriots have completely repackaged their roster. In 2021, the New England Patriots will have a completely different team. They just signed the entire free agency, from the wide receiver position to the tight end position, linebacker. They signed edge players. They signed nose tackles, cornerbacks. They signed them all. They're all on the New England Patriots. Just in one day, the New England Patriots have already, as of 7/11 Eastern Time on March 15th, on a Monday, the Patriots have signed not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven players today. What did Bill just do? Bill Belichick. I need to go on a rant real quick. Bill Belichick, the genius himself, okay? Do you guys realize that this man now, people finally realize that this man went 7-9 with scraps. There's a reason he's signing the entire NFL. And by the way, I predicted it and you guys made fun of me in my predictions. In my free agency predictions, I cannot tell you how many comments I got saying, Mitch, the Patriots are not going to sign the entire NFL. Yes, they are. Okay, I told you. All right. But Bill Belichick said, I'm not doing 7-9 no more. We need some talent on this team. So they kick it off, all right, with the first signing of the day, blockbuster, perhaps the best move they'd made all day. Jonnu Smith, tight end of the Tennessee Titans, 8 touchdowns a year ago, one of the best yards after catch players in the entire NFL, and arguably the most physically athletic tight end in the NFL. Maybe the fastest as well. He is now a New England Patriot. The Patriots needed speed, but they needed a tight end very, very badly. This was the worst tight end position in the NFL. The worst tight end position in the NFL last year. They've needed a tight end since Rob Gronkowski retired. Okay, it might have been the worst tight end position 2 years ago when they had 40-something-year-old Ben Watson on a torn Achilles. Okay, so it's been 2 years since the New England Patriots have actually had a tight end. Jonnu Smith is somebody that's not just a receiver. He's somebody that can block. He's well-rounded. This is the type of player Bill Belichick loves. Back in 2019, before their playoff game, he called Jonnu Smith the best yards after catch tight end in the league. And what he can do is, I think, not actually been realized by the NFL yet. So he's going to be involved in the screen game. He's going to be involved over the middle. We've seen him run deep seam routes like Rob Gronkowski in the past. They're going to find ways to get this guy the football. But just like I said, he can also play as a blocker, which is very fundamental to the Patriots offense because, as we know, right, the Patriots offense is going to be about power football. First and foremost, it's going to be about power football, play action, and they're going to sprinkle in the pass. The pass is going to be secondary to what they do offensively. But now you give Cam Newton, who's the supposed quarterback for the Patriots in 2021, I believe he will be the starting quarterback for the Patriots, a tight end who's athletic. Sounds a lot like Greg Olsen, okay? So Cam Newton's always been good with the tight end position. It's always been a big part of the Patriots offense. And when you remove that aspect of the offense, we saw over the past 2 years, this offense has not been the same. Tom Brady, Cam Newton, or any quarterback, okay? It hasn't just been the wide receiver position. It has primarily been the absolute non-existent tight end. Jonnu Smith is a baller. And I'm telling you, this guy has the opportunity to break out in Josh McDaniels' system. He's going to be used in ways that he's never been utilized. You have to factor in that Jonnu Smith, okay, played in a power run system already, okay, with the Tennessee Titans. And was a big reason blocking on that edge, setting that edge, getting Derrick Henry in open space. So he can do these type of things that the Patriots asked Rob Gronkowski to do in the past. But what he gives you now is a guy that's broken more tackles than just about any tight end in the league, outside of maybe George Kittle over the past couple of years. So, yes, you look at the money and it seems like a lot, but I'll tell you this. This guy is going to be a superstar. I preferred him for the Patriots over Hunter Henry because I think he's more well-rounded. He's more of a game breaker. He's more of a big play player. And I think, really, we have not actually seen his peak yet. Not even close. I think over the next 3 to 4 years, he's just going to be hitting his stride because I think he has all the tools. He has all the athleticism. All right? But there has not been a coach or a system to put him in the place to get the most out of Jonnu Smith. So this signing might have been the best fit of the day across the NFL. Bill Belichick addressed the tight end position here. And according to multiple sources, this was the guy they wanted the most. Out of every tight end and every wide receiver, they picked Jonnu Smith as their guy. I predicted it, all right? I predicted it. He's already a top 10 tight end, but I believe he truly does have top 3 potential, okay? He has all-pro potential. That is his potential. We've seen moments. We even saw early last year he was on a Pro Bowl pace, but for whatever reason, the Titans got away from that, all right? My guess right now would be Jonnu Smith is a Pro Bowler in 2021. That's my guess. I love this move. I think it makes them a lot better at their weakest position, and I think he will be utilized as one of, if not their top weapon this year. And I think he should be utilized that way. And I think he fits exactly what they're looking for in terms of somebody that has versatility, toughness, and athleticism. And he's young. He's only 25. So Jonnu Smith's a prime free agency signing by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Now, move number 2 was Matthew Judon. This one kind of came out of nowhere, okay? I was expecting the Patriots maybe to address the edge position, but it's been many years since the Patriots have spent big money on an edge player. Actually, the last time I can remember them spending big money on an edge player was another guy from Baltimore named Adalius Thomas. Now, that worked out for maybe a year and a half and really didn't live up to the hype. Matthew Judon is somebody that on the surface appears to fit the Patriots very well, but you would have never thought that he would have been in their price range. Like on a typical season and a typical offseason, the Patriots would never actually make this move. Like they've never had the money, they've never had the ability to go out and sign the luxury of having a guy like Matthew Judon. They've never really been able to address it, okay? But now, basically what they get in Matthew Judon is Kyle Van Noy, but a better pass rusher, okay? So Matthew Judon is somebody that has great versatility. He fits this system very well. He played in a similar system with both Dean Pease, who's also former defensive coordinator of New England, and then on top of that, okay, a guy that played with Don Martindale. Now, I know that some people, like PFF's guys, always say, okay, he's somebody that gets a lot of free pressures, free sacks. Well, that's because of the scheme, all right? But he is an underrated pass rusher, I think. But here's the thing with Matthew Judon. Like Bill Belichick likes his tight ends, he also likes his edge players to be very well-rounded, all right? And Matthew Judon is very well-rounded. He can set the edge well. He was a big part of the reason why they beat the Titans. That was Matthew Judon, his ability to set the edge and hold up the run game, as well as be able to blitz through these schemes and through these stunts. He's athletic enough to do that, and he's also good enough off the ball as a pass rusher to just get to the quarterback with 4. So he has a hybrid ability. I would look at him and say, as a Patriots fan, they're going to use him just the way that they used Kyle Van Noy. He's just better at basically everything, okay? He's not, I think, as small, like in terms of his mobility isn't as good if you want to drop him back into coverage. But when it comes to pass rush and when it comes to run defense, I think you get an upgrade in terms of that type of player, okay? And that is why he got that much money. So I would have been concerned about Matthew Judon if he would have went somewhere to be, like, let's say Seattle. Like, just, okay, pin your ears back and you're going to get to the quarterback. That's not exactly what he's great at. But going to somewhere like New England where his style and his fit is good for what he does well, that is a good signing. And I think he's actually kind of underrated because of the way that we always talk about what he's not good at, but people don't necessarily talk about what he is very good at. So he's a great player. He's going to make their position, one of their worst positions, just way better, like drastically better, okay? And it's awesome because the Patriots have not had a good edge player since Chandler Jones, and now they have a legitimate top 20 edge player here in Matthew Judon, and has been that way. He's been very consistent as well. That's also something that's very valuable, right? Consistent, healthy, and well-rounded. That's Bill Belichick for you, and that is Matthew Judon. That's what they're getting here. He's also, I think, one of 4 players to have like a certain amount of pressures and a certain amount of sacks in the same time span. And that's also something that maybe flies under the radar. So great signing. I love both those marquee signings. I never really thought that Matthew Judon would have been a possibility for New England, but when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense because the scheme fit is there. So the Patriots have now replaced Gronk, and they have replaced Kyle Van Noy. Okay, so the next signing they made, we're going to go for a while here with the Patriots signings. I'm sorry, non-Patriots fans, but bro, they owned the day, okay? They owned the day. March 15th, 2021 was the day of Bill Belichick, okay? So the third signing, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Davon Godchaux, I think is how you pronounce his name. I might have totally butchered that. But what I do know about him is he is a massive mammoth of a man, okay? He is 300 and about 20-something pounds. He is a very, very good run defender. Now, he didn't play a lot last year. He only played 5 games last year in Brian Flores' Miami defense. But 5 games is enough for Bill Belichick to get a sense of how he fit a similar system, while also seeing him absolutely wreck the Patriots in recent seasons. So he was actually one of the guys that was very disruptive versus the Patriots' run game in 2018, 17. Yeah, he began his career in 17. He's only 26, so this is another guy that's fairly young. All these guys that they signed are pretty young, like 25 to 27. I don't think they've signed anyone older than that. So Davon is somebody that big, nose tackle, space eater, run defender. PFF has rated him pretty highly in 18 and 19 as a run defender. As a rookie, he was and then in 20, he was hurt. So when he's played for a majority of the year, he's been very good in the area that he's been signed to be very good. So he's not somebody that's going to impact the pass game very much. But he's basically the new Danny Shelton or like the new Alan Branch. Always trying to put it into Patriots terms here. But that's the type of player the Patriots are getting with him. And just an in the backfield force that is going to be able to make an area for New England that was under the radar very bad, okay? The Patriots' run defense was awful. I think run DVOA-wise, they were 30th, I believe, and run defense-wise, they were like 26th. So they were one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Part of that was because they couldn't set the edge, so that's Matthew Judon. Part of it was because they didn't have a big nose tackle who was a space eater, okay? That is what they got here. So they've covered their run defense now with 2 huge additions, as well as getting a guy that can also rush the passer. So again, a lot of the games they lost was because, remember when I brought this up with the Cam Newton videos, 32nd in time of possession. Why were they 32nd in time of possession? because they couldn't stop the run. That is what they're getting here. Getting people in more, difficult third downs, difficult second downs. And that is where their secondary, which is the strength of their defense, can thrive. When you put an offense in 3rd and 8, when you put an offense in 3rd and 7, and they have to pass, that's when your secondary can lock them down. But if your great secondary is constantly in 3rd and 3s and under, it doesn't matter if you have Gilmore or J.C. Jackson because it's too easy to convert. So I really like what Belichick did here. Not a sexy signing, 2 years up to $16 million, but a really key signing to getting them back to Patriot football on defense. The next signing was Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills is a hybrid safety cornerback who's played for the Philadelphia Eagles under a Belichick disciple in Jim Schwartz for many seasons. So Jim Schwartz recently just retired. I would probably think that Bill Belichick reached out to Schwartz and asked him what he thought of Jalen Mills. I think that was heavily influential in this signing. Jalen Mills is somebody that Eagles fans have loved and hated over the course of his tenure. But he is somebody in New England that I think could be best utilized as that hybrid defensive back. I would look at Jalen Mills as a replacement and an upgrade over Terrence Brooks. Okay, somebody that can play free safety, strong safety, corner, nickel, all of the positions all over the secondary, which is what he has done throughout the course of his career. This isn't projecting somebody to play all those roles. It's somebody that's legitimately been able to do that. And Bill Belichick understands better than anybody else what the value is in the modern NFL in 2021. What a hybrid defensive back who can fill in on every spot can do for you. Because if one of your corners goes down, Jalen Mills has experience playing there and has played well, right? He could play nickel if Jonathan Jones gets hurt, right? He could play safety if Devin McCourty gets hurt or if Kyle Duggar gets injured. So Jalen Mills is somebody that when you looked at the contract, you're like, wow, he got more money than I expected. But what Bill Belichick sees is somebody that's pretty young, that already has a ton of experience playing perimeter, nickel, and safety. And I think what he's going to do is I think primarily Mills will play safety as the third safety. Think Duron Harmon, think Brooks, right? Third safety, but he could play everywhere. So he is not somebody that's going to be playing a lot of snaps, but is going to be playing a very specific and specialized role. And that is what Bill Belichick over the last 3 to 4 years has been able to do with his defenses. So I like this move. I think it's a quality signing because the versatility is what we need in this defense. The next signing for New England, we're not done, is Nelson Agholor. 2 years, $26 million, wide receiver. Nelson Agholor is actually, I understand that he has a relationship? Nope, that's not the word. Reputation. That's the word. Nelson Agholor has a reputation of being somebody that's dropped a lot of passes, a bust, a former first-round pick, I believe, maybe a second-round pick, that's been sort of underwhelming. Okay? When you look at this move, 2 years, $26 million. He went to the Raiders last year. They changed the way that Nelson Agholor played, and he was actually a number 1 wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, who, by the way, that is no small feat. The Las Vegas Raiders were a top 5 offense in the NFL last year by many metrics and statistics. So Nelson Agholor was one of those interesting wide receivers because we didn't really know, what he was going to go for on the open market, what people were going to see and judge him by. Were they going to judge him by his Eagles days where it didn't really work out? He had a really good year one year, the year they won the Super Bowl, but outside of that, he wasn't really spectacular. Or were they going to judge him on his most recent, which was in John Gruden's system, as more of a perimeter receiver who was actually more of a deep threat? That's actually what Nelson Agholor was last year, guys. You might think of him as the inside, slot wide receiver. he is more of an perimeter guy now, and he's more of a guy that can go deep down the field and make plays deep down the field. I like Nelson Agholor. I thought, he's always had the ability to get open. He's always had the ability to separate, but sometimes his hands have been inconsistent. That's been the issue. His confidence, right? We know how important wide receivers' confidence is and headspace. So we saw him leave the Eagles, get a new headspace, get a new confidence, and then go to the Raiders and actually be very productive. He was their best receiver last year. So he's not a number one. Like, you wouldn't prefer him to be your number one, but he played as a number one for the Raiders. I believe you would prefer him to be a number two. I think he's a quality, pretty good number two for what he can do, and he can make big plays. And I think he'll fit this system because he can play inside or outside. He separates well, which is what the Patriots need. He has good speed, right? And I think Cam Newton needed a guy that could stretch the field and get over top. And I think that's what Nelson Agholor can do here. I also think, we might have not seen the best from Nelson Agholor yet. It's similar to Jonnu Smith. Like, we've seen bits and pieces of it, but we haven't exactly seen everything. But I do think his trajectory is going up and it's rising. And I think that is also somebody that you want to pay for the future, right? Belichick has always done this. He's always paid for the future production, not for the past production. That means with players that maybe years past they were great, he's never paid up for them. And guys that are young, he'll typically take a chance on them to get better. So Agholor, I think, is a good number two wide receiver. You wouldn't prefer him to be a number one, but he has some traits that can allow him in certain games to put up number one production. So with the amount that the Patriots will be passing the ball this year, I'd love for them to get a number one, but they don't necessarily need it, especially because they got Jonnu Smith. We still have the draft. They got Nelson Agholor, and now they've also signed Kendrick Bourne to a 3-year deal worth $22.5 million. Now, what Kendrick Bourne reminds me of, Patriots fans, is Brandon LaFell. That's what he reminds me of. Similar to Brandon LaFell, who Cam Newton actually played with. Brandon LaFell is a really good player for the Patriots in 2014. He has a pretty big frame, right? He's more of a perimeter receiver, kind of been underutilized in San Francisco, but was their number two wide receiver in San Francisco when they went to the Super Bowl. They had Deebo Samuel, and they had Kendrick Bourne, and they had George Kittle. Okay? So Kendrick Bourne actually ran the second fastest three-cone, which is something Belichick really looks at for wide receivers, their quickness, their agility. So even despite his size or his height, Kendrick Bourne is a pretty quick wide receiver. He can get in and out of his breaks pretty quickly. He's more of a technician than really a burner, I would say. And he uses his frame to body out cornerbacks more than just straight up burn them with speed. But he's been pretty underrated over the past couple of years. He's been pretty productive when called upon. And I think, again, he's another guy that played in a system, right? You look at a receiver with the Raiders and you look at a receiver with the Niners who played in offenses that primarily run first and play action, right? This is exactly what New England's going to be doing in 2021 with a lot of running and then guys that can get open, understand, leverage and getting open on those play action shot type plays. And I think those two receivers will complement Cam Newton with, different bodies, different body types, different type of players. And actually, Kendrick Bourne is a little bit like Jacoby Myers when you really think about it. I think they're fairly similar in how they play. So Kendrick Bourne, 3 years, $22.5 million, not a number one wide receiver. Again, he has played as a number two receiver, but he's more of a number three, and he'll be a productive player for them. And by the contract, it would suggest he'll be on the team and playing a role. Now, finally with the Patriots here, again, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 7 moves today. they have re-signed Dietrich Wise as well. Dietrich Wise, just quickly here, Patriots fans know him, but I think this was a really valuable re-signing. I think he's actually underrated as an interior pass rusher, and I'm happy he's back. Adam Butler is still a free agent, I believe, so maybe they work on a contract with him. But he's somebody that I thought if he would have left, he would have thrived elsewhere in, a Seattle scheme or something like that. But I'm glad he's back because I think he is a valuable interior pass rusher on those third downs, in those pass rush situations. And he can play a role on the inside more so than on the edge. So Dietrich Wise, I'm happy he's back as well. I think he's an underrated. And just as I stopped talking about the Patriots, they sign another player on a 2-year deal, former New York Jet. So earlier today, they already signed a Miami Dolphin defensive lineman. Now they come back and they sign a New York Jet defensive lineman. Henry Anderson. Henry Anderson is, I would say, the most experienced veteran player off the top of my head that they've signed today. Ranking 54th by PFF this past season, he has been considered a very solid defensive lineman, more well known for his run defense than his pass rush ability. But once again here, Bill Belichick addressed his run defense. A run defense that allowed the most time of possession in pro football last year. A run defense that ranked near the bottom of the league in DVOA, yards allowed and yards per attempt. And a run defense that just sucked, period. Now they add Matthew Judon to set the edge and get after the quarterback. They add a big nose tackle from Miami. And now they add a solid 3-4 type defensive end from the New York Jets. Henry Anderson was released from the Jets previous to free agency, I believe, because he did no longer fit what they are doing there in New York. Remember, the Jets are now in a new defensive scheme. So Henry Anderson was not a fit for the Robert Saleh scheme. He was a fit for the Greg Williams scheme and for the Todd Bowles scheme. And the Todd Bowles scheme is a lot closer to the Belichick scheme than the Robert Saleh scheme. So Henry Anderson is going to be another big body. I believe he's really tall. Like off the top of my head, I'm saying this all the top of my head. I think he's like 6'5" and he's over 300 pounds. He's somewhere in that range. He's a big man. He has long arms, great reach, very good versus the run, shedding blocks. So what I'm really seeing from Belichick here is something that I brought up this offseason that we're starting to learn about the NFL, which is what the Rams did. Okay? So the Rams last year, their defense was basically a defensive line with a lot of big people. And then behind the big people, they had a lot of DBs. I would not be shocked if the Patriots this year are saying that they want just a bunch of big mother you-know-whats to defend the run and to shed blocks, and then a bunch of corners behind that and safeties. Because that's what the Rams did. The Rams were the #1 defense in the NFL. Now, the Patriots attempted to do that this year, but they had no ability to defend the run. So what Belichick is thinking, if I'm getting in the mind of the genius, is he is trying to get a bunch of run defenders that can play the run with a limited box count. So not a lot of people near the line of scrimmage. And he wants big people to defend the run, and then he's going to use his secondary to cover behind that. So he's already added a 300-plus pound nose tackle from Miami, and now another 3-4 DN type from the Jets in Henry Anderson. Henry Anderson, good quality starting interior defensive player, and will be mixed into the rotation. They still have Bo Allen coming back, who didn't play last year. They signed him last offseason. They'll see if he can compete and have a role there. Dietrich Wise was re-signed. Lawrence Guy is a free agent, so maybe that means goodbye to Lawrence Guy. Maybe they bring him back. So they're just rebuilding their defensive line across the board, because that was their biggest weakness last year on defense. You know, it was wide receiver on offense, wide receiver and tight end, and on defense, it was defensive line. So now they're adding depth, they're adding players, they're adding pieces to this defensive line, another one in Henry Anderson. So those are all the Patriots moves from today, March 15th, 2021. Let me know what you guys think about every Patriot move from today, and let me know which one your favorite is. Is it Jonnu Smith? Is it Matthew Judon? Is it Kendrick Bourne, maybe Nelson Agholor? Let me know in the comments section below.